What's good YouTube, it's Adam from iMusicMole. Welcome to a brand new video. Today we're going to go ahead and break down the remake of All Red by Playboi Carti. The tempo for this one is 143 beats per minute, and the track is produced by Filthy, Lukrative, Lucian, Ojivolta, and Twisco. Now typically we make the remakes from scratch, but this one there is a lot of different sounds in there, a lot of switch ups, a lot of sections. If at any time this video gets really boring, lengthy, and repetitive, just click the final beat tag and it'll take you to the final beat to see what it sounded like as a whole. And then if you want to see different parts, you can come back to that, just so you know, in case it gets a little boring. So let's start off with the intro. We'll take a listen to it and then break that down track by track. Alright, so starting off, we have the main pluck sound that loops throughout the entire track, and it sounds like this. Alright, so that consists of 3 different sounds. The main pluck sound, this right here. So for that sound, I use Logic's Alchemy, and the preset that I chose was the Mallet O Harmonics on the Deep Performance. All I really added to the sound was some reverb, some chorus just to soften it up, and some EQ to make it darker. And then layered with that, I listened to the original track. It had like this sort of granular effect to it, this grain sort of stuff happening in the background. So I was guessing there's some sort of like portal type of effect on the main pluck sound. So for that to mimic it using Logic stuff, I brought in this preset here. It kind of gives you that sparkle on the sound. This is using a soundscape from Logic's Alchemy. The preset is called Cosmic Theory, and on the Stutter Ring Performance. The only thing I did on this one is just clean up some of the low end and just really focus on that high, sparkly stuff. So together. And then we get this right here. Sort of a similar sound, but sort of like a lower octave, a little bit more gritty than the other sparkly stuff. And for this sound, I am using Logic's Sample Alchemy, and the preset that I'm using is the Angelic Guitar Pad, and once again, just some EQ to clean up some of the lows. So that's the main lead, and then underneath that, we have this piano. So for that piano, I'm just basically using a instance of Logic's Squeeze Pop Piano preset. Then we have this right here. Sort of like an airy bell sound that sits on top of everything. And for this sound, I am using Logic's Retro Synth, the Delicate Chimes preset, and I just added in some reverb just to put it into a space. Now all that stuff together, we get this. And then underneath all that, there are 2 counter melodies. This is one of them right over here. So for that sound, I'm just using Logic's Retro Synth. I'm using the Hyper Lead preset. That's pretty much it. Just put a little bit of reverb in there just to put it into a space. And for the other top melody, and for that sound, I'm just using a lead preset in Logic. If you go under the lead category, under synthesizer lead, go to electric buzz. I'm just basically taking that stock sound right there. And then we get these stabby chords. Just hitting on the ones, and for the sound, I'm using Logic's Alchemy, the Drive Saws preset. Once again, EQ for some shaping. We get another lead happening on the top end. For that sound, I'm using Logic's Alchemy, just buzzing metallic lead preset on the detune performance. And then we got this right here, following a similar pattern, just this middle note is taken out. And for that, once again, I'm using Logic's Sample Alchemy, this time using the Blown Bottle Keys preset. So once again, all together for the intro, it sounds like this. All right, and then we get this pluck sound that we get throughout the entire track. So this right here, let me just solo that out. So that is essentially the Nextel chirp that Filthy uses on his tag. This one was just pitched down 14 semitones. Here's the original one. Let's just go back down to 0. So that's the original chirp right there. So all I did was bring this down 14 semitones to match the one in the original track itself. So we're using that same tag, and that basically just goes at the end of every 4 bars for the entire track. Now to get that sort of grittier sound, I brought in some EQ to take out some of the top end, brought in a fat effects just to make this a little bit fatter, more compressed, a little bit more distorted with the bit crusher right here, and put it into a space using one of my favorite presets to use in Logic's Chroma Reverb, the Effects Cave preset. And all together, it sounded like that. So without all this, it'll sound like that. All right, so that's intro A. Then we're gonna go into the next 4 bars of the intro, and we get this new sound right here. So it's like this really buzzy lead type of sound. So for that, we're using Logic's ES2 synthesizer. It's basically using the default setting that loads up. Some EQ just to take out a lot of the low end without it. You know, you want to make it really tinny sounding, narrow sounding. Add in a bit crusher with a lot of drive to give it that gritty sound. And once again, some reverb for space. Mention on all of these sounds as well, it is in a group track, and what I've applied to it is this Chroma Glow distortion plugin on the Buzzy Grit preset under Guitar Electric, and it's giving you that gritty sound that we heard in the original track. So without it, it's not going to sound as distorted. With it, kind of gives you that narrow, gritty, distorted sound that Playboi Carti likes to put in his tracks. Now for the verse right here, we get 2 new sounds, these 2 right here. So one of them, just this bell sound from Alchemy once again. The preset is called Caught in a Deep Thought. And then the second bell, the Warm Bells preset from Logic's ES2 synthesizer. It just thickens up those bells a little bit here. Then of course we have the drums. So we have our 808. We have our snare. We have our hi-hat. We have a repeat right here. Next, we have our open hat. All right, and our secondary snare. So as the track builds up, more sounds come in. So right here we have this lead sound. It's a really simple sound to design. I made it from scratch using Logic's ES2 synthesizer. It's basically just a sine wave and with a little bit of EQ just to shape the sound a bit. And you kind of get that blip blip sound. And then the secondary one, For that, I'm using Logic's ES2 synthesizer once again. And for that, I'm just using the default setting that loads up once again, and just really added in some chorus, some bit crusher, and EQ for shaping. So without the chorus and bit crusher, the sound will be totally different. So here's with chorus, softens it up with the bit crusher, and gives it that gritty sound. So over here we get another synth, bringing us into the next section. And we get another sort of synthy stab type of sound. For this sound, I'm using the dense metallic tines in Logic's Alchemy under the Metal Tines Performance. That goes on for a little bit. We get another new sound here, sort of like the analog strings type of sound. For that sound, I am using Logic's Retro Synth using the Bright Strings preset found under Synth Strings. And once again, some EQ for shaping. So we get some new stuff in this section right here. We get this. Once again, it's just an ES2 synth, just a sine wave really, and some EQ for shaping. And then that giant bass. Now for that bass, I designed it in Logic's ES1 synthesizer. I built it off of the sub bass preset found under synth bass. This is what it looks like, and no other effects on it. Yet another new sound comes into play. We got this sound right here. For that sound, I'm just using a classic Supersaw preset in Logic's Alchemy under the thick category, or sorry, thick performance. We're just gonna jump ahead to this part right over here. We get another set of strings. Just one note hitting at the key of the track, which is E minor. For this sound, I'm using the Bright Strings panning preset. You can find other synthesizer strings, Bright Strings panning. And the only thing I added here was some chorus, reverb. So without the chorus and reverb, I added this beat breaker as well. So that's what it sounds like on its own. Once you add in the chorus, it softens it up. The reverb puts it into space. And for the beat breaker, I'm just basically using halftime to give it that darker tone. Then we get these vocal hey chant in the background, which I sampled from the track directly. So now we're coming into the end of the track. We're getting in some more sounds. To start off, we get this string sound over here. So I am using the same Bright Strings panning preset, but for this time I brought in a rotor effect to give it a little bit more texture like in the original track. I'm using the Gig Rig preset here. And then we get this one-shot hit. And that's basically just using, once again, a stock preset of Logic's ES2 synthesizer with some reverb. We get another sub bass right here. It's very similar to the previous one. It's just a little bit slightly darker with the cutoff being rolled off a bit and less drive. We got a secondary 808 here. It's pretty much the same as the first one, except for this one, we are rolling off the top end of the 808 to make it a little bit darker so that the bass that we brought in shines on top of it. And over here, we're just bringing in a different pluck sound just to give it a little bit more texture like I heard in the original track. For this one, we are using Logic's Alchemy, and we're using the Space Time Keys mallet under the Motion Performance. Once again, some EQ for shaping. And then the last two sounds for the outro to bring us out is these two right here. So the first one, for that lead sound, I'm using Logic's Retro Synth. The default setting that loads up in Retro Synth actually just adjusted the cutoff and the envelope right over here, added some EQ for shaping, and the secondary sound also using the default setting that loads up in Logic's Retro Synth. Once again, played around with the filter a little bit here and put it in a space. And for the space, what's unique about that one is that I made it 100% wet, so that it sounds like this muffled type of sound, and there's 0% dry in it, so it's not as bright. Alright, so now if you made it through that boring, lengthy video, let's go ahead and play this from the top. Playboi Carti's All Red remade in Logic Pro. There is All Red by Playboi Carti remade in Logic Pro. If you're Logic Pro users out there, I'm going to go ahead and save this entire session for you. Place it as a downloadable link below this video. If you don't use Logic, I got your back as well. I'm going to export all the MIDI stems, audio stems, and of course include the drum kit that you heard in this remake. You can find that entire playback down below the like button as well. If you have any questions on this or just want to chat or any suggestions for future videos, let's go and chat down below. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next one. Later. Peace.